What is fantasy football? Well, according to Wikipedia, fantasy football is a game in which the participants serve as owners and general managers of virtual professional American football teams. The competitors select their rosters by participating in a draft in which all relevant National Football League (NFL) players are available. Fantasy points are awarded in weekly matchups based on the actual performance of the football players in real-world competition. It's basically like you're one of the best NBA players and you're drafting your team for the All-Star game, except instead of having people like Giannis, Curry, Luka, LeBron, and Jokic, you might have Jared Goff, Brandon Ayuk, James Conner, Jacoby Myers, Eric Ebron, and others. I've been playing fantasy football since 2015 and played in 7 leagues. Although that doesn't sound like a lot, I think it's still somewhat impressive. More than half the time I've played, I've finished in second place, so you can somewhat trust me to help you out. There are 3 different scoring modes in fantasy football: standard, PPR, and half PPR. Standard is the standard scoring system. PPR, which stands for points per reception, gives you a point for every catch someone makes on your team. And half PPR is the same as PPR, except you get half a point instead of a full point. I personally prefer PPR. Before we get into how to draft your team, here are the roster settings I personally use. 1 quarterback, 2 starting receivers, 2 starting running backs, 1 tight end, 6 bench spots, 1 kicker, and 1 defense. Tools. There are many different tools you can use to help you in fantasy football. Here are a couple of my favorite: PFF.com, pro-football-reference.com, ESPN.com/NFL, Channel 87 on SiriusXM, Channel 88 on SiriusXM, PFF.com/podcasts, draftwizard.fantasypros.com/football, and fantasypros.com, just to name a few. How do you draft a team? If you're new to fantasy, you may think you need to take a quarterback in the first round, just as soon as possible. But that's where you're wrong. You always want to go wide receiver, running back heavy. Think about it like this: you're in a 12-team league. The 12 best quarterbacks in the NFL will all average around the same amount of points. So all 12 of the starting quarterbacks in your league are all going to have kind of the same amount of points. Now think about the 50 best wide receivers or running backs in the NFL, because you're going to be drafting a ton of running backs and wide receivers. You're going to need those. Are they all going to average the same amount of points? No, not at all. There's more demand for wide receivers and running backs, so it's better to take them early. But when do you want to draft each position? Also, just so you know, this advice is for a 15-round draft. When to draft a quarterback? When do you draft your quarterback? I say you want to draft one between the 4th and 7th round. The 4th might even be too early. I know it may seem crazy, but if you can have your 2 starting wide receivers and 2 starting running backs before needing your quarterback, that's a huge win in my eyes. Now, who do you want to take? I won't say, just in case this video does well, because then I can use that as another video. So let me know if maybe you want a guide further in depth to drafting. When to draft a wide receiver. As I've said earlier, draft a wide receiver as soon as possible. 1st round, 2nd round, 3rd round, 4th round, any round. You cannot have enough receivers. When to draft a running back. For running back, it's pretty much the same thing as you want to do with wide receivers. You want to draft as many and as soon as you can. When to draft a tight end. I personally like taking a tight end from the 5th round to the 12th round. That's a pretty big range. In my eyes, you don't need to draft a second tight end to be a backup. You're fine with just one. The 1 week your tight end is on his bye, you can pick up another one to be his backup, or in this case, his starter, since it's his bye week, off of the waiver wire. More on that later. I personally love Robert Tonyan, and you can usually get him as late as the 11th round. Now, you will sometimes see Darren Waller, Travis Kelce, George Kittle go as soon as the 3rd round, maybe even higher. But do not let that persuade you into taking one earlier. You can wait. When to draft a defense. I personally like drafting defenses before kickers since most kickers are relatively the same point-wise while defenses are not. I like the defenses in the 3rd to last round, so in a 15-round draft, the 12th round. You can take defenses as early as the 10th, although I wouldn't recommend it. Just know that you don't need to draft 2 defenses unless you really want to. I was once in a league with some friends, and one of the guys, it was his first year, and he took the Ravens defense in I think the 5th round. That is a huge mistake. Don't do something like that. When to draft a kicker. For kickers, I like to take them in the 2nd to last round, so in a 15th round draft, the 14th round. Some people will take them as early as the 11th, although in my opinion, that is way too early. Same as defense, I don't recommend drafting 2 of them. Now, sometimes you do want to keep it in mind, hey, these teams are probably going to be scoring more than others, so the kicker's going to have more chances, but usually all kickers are really going to do the same. The waiver wire. Yahoo defines the waiver wire as waivers put temporary freezes on unclaimed players, giving everyone a chance to make a claim on them. When this time period ends, all waiver claims are processed and the manager with the highest waiver priority gets the player. The waiver wire can be one of the most helpful tools in fantasy football. I 100% recommend using the waiver wire as much as you can. If that did not make a lot of sense to you, here's it in simpler words. Obviously, not every single player is going to be drafted. So where do all of those players go? Well, it's like in real NFL, they go into free agency. Except in fantasy football, it's not free agency, it's the waiver wire. So basically, if you ever need another player, you can cut one of your players because you can't go over your roster size, and then you can pick one of those guys out of free agency / the waiver wire. Now, I hope this video does help you play fantasy football. I hope it helps you learn. If you guys do want to learn more, please let me know. I'd love to do a mock draft. Probably will. Who knows? Maybe I'll even live stream me doing mock drafts. I find it very fun. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.